I'm in Denmark, in Western Australia, not Europe sadly. Our public broadcaster budget doesn't extend to Europe. It's a coastal town about 3 hours from Nannup. Another of these small southwest towns, much like the one I live in. So there's this photo, which I don't know if you recognise.
Oh, yes, that's my son and me.
The photo we're looking at is the same one I found in Cath McDougall's box of old photos with Tracy written on the back, in Chantelle's tight, curling handwriting.
That must have been at the Earl of Spencer.
Is that what you recognise,
Yeah.
that pub?
Yeah, oh, so my son did.
Tracy tells me the photos of Leela's second birthday.
Oh my God, she was just a little force. I always remember Chantelle going, just gentle, Leela. She just gets so excited, trying to contain herself. She'd just almost have to go like frozen and stiff kind of thing.
Leela's got a round face, with big eyes and short blonde hair cut with a fringe. Tracy says while Chantelle and Leela danced, Simon looked right at home, chugging beers and eating pub food.
Bit of a contrast from a person who you think's channeling and only in the spirit realm.
You were kind of the only photo of any of Chantelle's friends that they had.
Yep.
It was a bit of a random stab in the dark, but I had a hunch that it'd be worth trying to get hold of Tracy. I was right. It was worth finding her. She has some key puzzle pieces to how the four came to be hidden away in Nannup and then disappeared. Her full name is Tracy Paige. She's still living in Denmark, where Chantelle, Leela, Simon and Tony moved in 2003. They were getting away from their Floriat house in Perth. I'm Dominique Bayens, and this is episode 4 of Expanse, the Nannup 4, a question of belief. Tracy's long white grey hair, flowing pants and her long turquoise green top tell me she's a certified Denmark hippie.
I've probably always been a fairly free thinker. Denmark's just the whole package really for slightly alternative living and different type of education. You can be yourself is really what it's about. It's being more true to yourself.
When Tracy and Chantelle first met in 2003, among the floating pastel-coloured fabric and natural wooden toys of a Steiner playgroup, they identified kindred spirits in each other. They both had daughters the same age and a similar worldview.
We both felt safe with each other and I guess we had similar outlooks. She was probably a good 10 years or maybe even more younger than me, but it didn't seem like that.
And just like Tracy, this older than her years gentle mum was
discerning of who we were around or what sort of the energy and, you know, I don't want to say protective, but definitely discerning of our environments for the children.
What do you mean by that?
People who are more grounded and, aware of themselves.
As Tracy tells me about her friendship with Chantelle, I start to hear things that I've heard before.
Because I remember her saying, Simon said it's okay for you to come to our place. And I was going, oh, okay.
This feels almost word for word like what homeschool mum Diane told me. Simon let them come to Busselton for homeschool group. And there's also the same explanations for Simon's behaviour.
It was like he's up a lot at night because he's on the internet and he has a bit of a group of people that he talks to.
Chantelle said he was a creative writer, channeling spiritual insight, which also accounted for the odd hours he kept.
And she was more just his supportive person and the homemaker, and he was all into what he was doing. I didn't really have any judgment over it. It was sort of like, younger women, we do, and we fall in love and we have children.
Tracy's obviously pretty open-minded, a you-do-you philosophy. And what she heard about Simon didn't sound that strange to her. She moved in circles where the idea of people channeling spiritual insights was normal. She'd worked for clairvoyants and healers and in New Age shops. I get the impression that what stood out to Tracy was actually how not New Agey Simon was.
Just sort of a bit, I don't want to say slothy, but I just remember this stance of just slothy is just the word that comes to mind. Not bubbly or anything like me and Chantelle.
Tracy had only met Chantelle and Leela 9 months ago, but Leela had become fast friends with Tracy's daughter, Sarah. The two vivacious toddlers became besties.
They were lovely little friends. They also loved dancing and like doing kind of, little shows. Yeah, and dressing up, of course, they were always dressing up.
There's this really sweet echo of Chantelle here. The shows she'd put on with her sister Colleen, the dreams of a life on stage. When I first spoke to Tracy on the phone, I asked about whether she ever saw anything that troubled her in Simon and Chantelle's dynamic, whether Chantelle seemed under his control. And at first she'd said no. Chantelle was way too grounded and capable for that. But as we kept talking, I felt like that started unspooling in real time. She realised how much younger Chantelle was, which she hadn't clocked at the time, and that maybe she had been more vulnerable than Tracy had realised. In 2003, Tracy was walking down the main street when she saw Chantelle at a cafe with a dark-haired young man and stopped to join them. Chantelle introduces him. It's Tony Poppich.
I remember thinking he's more in Chantelle's age group.
Tracy knows Chantelle's partner is Simon Cadwell, but she never thought there was much of a romantic spark between them. So seeing Chantelle with the younger man, it sparks her curiosity.
I thought that would make more sense if maybe they had a thing going on.
This is pretty unlikely. Tony was gay.
Now I realise in hindsight he was much more of a follower of Simon, but I didn't, didn't click then.
Tracy joins the two for coffee, and as they're chatting, she gets to know this new bloke. Tony seems like a capable, hands-on kind of guy, but Tracy notices there's something kind of lost about him.
I wouldn't say nervous person, but not completely self-assured type of person, yeah.
And then the conversation turns. Tracy's pretty sure it was Tony who brought it up.
I mean, I don't want to say Armageddon-y kind of thing, but I guess there was that slant in the conversation.
Armageddon, as in doomsday.
I don't know how engaged I would have got into it. I probably would have been, it's quite an interesting topic to surmise where the world's going.
Tracy got the impression that Tony really believed there was a doomsday coming, and that Tony, Chantelle and Simon all kind of didn't want to be part of society.
I always thought that was their grand plan, to go to South America. If the world's too crazy, that's a great place to go to kind of be away from it.
Tracy didn't have much to do with Tony after that day, but she's still been able to tell me more about Tony than I've managed to get from pretty well everyone else I've spoken to. So few people have any recollection of him, and those that do, it seems hazy. People describe him as gentle, polite, quiet, a hard worker, but nothing that seems to get to who he was as a person. I know some basic facts about his life. In 1996, Tony was living in Perth. He was in a relationship and had a well-paying job for a supermarket chain. He had a company car, a house, and according to his family, was living a very normal life. But then he attended a spiritual seminar called Turning Point. From what I've learnt, he came away from that seminar a different person. He believed that he was a higher power, with spirituality surrounding him. He became uncommunicative and his relationship broke down. He sold all his possessions and began a nomadic life, never staying in one place for too long, going long stretches without contacting his family. It was in this new world of spirituality and higher powers that he crossed paths with Simon Cadwell and moved into the tent in the Floriat house, When the other women left, it seems like Simon, Chantelle and Tony became a trio. Tony would sometimes leave and move somewhere else for a while, but he would always find his way back to Simon and Chantelle. All this feels like a familiar pattern. All these people, Tony, Chantelle, even Chantelle's old flame from her Auntie Pauline's, Simon Cookman, they were all living, for want of a better word, normal lives. Then they come across Simon and his teachings, and there's this really sudden shift. They quit their jobs, bust important relationships, move away from family and friends, keep part of themselves hidden away. Simon, Chantelle and Tony had barely been living in Denmark a year when Tracy got an unexpected request from Chantelle. She wanted to know if she could put Tracy down as a rental reference. They were leaving town and they'd found a place they liked the look of in Nannup, 3 hours away. A little blue farmhouse. They had to leave, Chantelle had said, because
the way it was presented, like, yeah, we've been seeing spirits in our place, it's getting too noisy here.
And when you say that it was getting too noisy here, do you mean that in the sense of like traffic, or how do you mean noisy?
I mean by electric interference kind of thing, so Wi-Fi, phones, that kind of thing.
So the EMF we've heard about before, but this is the first time I've heard about visions. Tracy says Simon was seeing spirits in the backyard.
Just that, he felt a bit intruded.
Simon, Chantelle, Tony and Leela packed up their house and left town quickly, without fanfare.
We've probably had a phone call, see ya, and we'll stay in touch.
The four rolled from the crystal blue ocean inland into green hills and the towering forests of Nannup in late 2003, a place where their alternative ideas and lifestyle wouldn't draw attention, where they could lose themselves in the isolation. Leela was now a toddler, and it had been a year since Chantelle's parents had seen either of them. They hadn't visited in Denmark, instead bringing Chantelle and Leela home to Wodonga in Victoria for a visit. Jim still hadn't met Simon Cadwell, so in 2004, him and Cath headed across the country to the Blue House. You'd think after years of waiting to meet the in-laws, Simon would have been rolling out the red carpet for Jim and Cath's arrival, but that was not the case.
And Simon was in bed, didn't get out of bed, and I said to Chantelle, he sleeps all day.
Jim would have to wait until dinner for Simon to finally emerge from his bedroom in a pair of track pants and a jumper.
He didn't look like super dressed, or he didn't dress up and get done up for us, that's for sure.
Jim could look past Simon's lack of effort in the fashion department. It was the conversation that followed that really took him aback.
The first thing he basically said to me is, I don't want you to talk to Leela because, you talk rough and you're corrupt her, I'd never had a conversation with him. I got me back up a little bit already with him,
Things between Jim and Simon only got more awkward as the evening went on, and Jim pulled out his camera to snap some family photos.
And he said, no, you won't take me picture, it'll take me soul away. He wouldn't let me take a picture of the kids, like Chantelle and him and the kids together.
Any hopes of bonding with his son-in-law quickly faded.
I was already feeling a bit on edge anyway about the first meeting with him. It didn't get much better anyway after that.
Jim noticed Chantelle seemed pretty uncomfortable too.
A little bit on edge, I'd say. A little bit on edge that if I was going to rock the boat sort of thing, So I started working around the house for Chantelle, fixing things around the farmhouse and make as much noise so he'd wake up. Hope he got cranky and he'd talk to me.
I can't help but feel disappointed for Jim and Cath here. It feels like every step of the way they're still hopeful that maybe things aren't as bad as they seem. And at some point, Chantelle will get the regular suburban family life they want for her. But as far as the first time meeting the in-laws, things couldn't have gone worse. When they visited next time, a year later, They knew Chantelle was working and carrying the domestic load, so Cath's keen to help. Well, try at least.
Chantelle had to go off to work and she said, "Oh, you can bath Leela and get her ready for bed and put her to bed." And he sort of jumped in after Chantelle went, grabbed Leela, ran the bath, did it. He didn't want me to have anything to do with her. It was just to keep me away.
I can tell this is a painful moment that has stayed with Cath. Not being allowed to carry out the everyday grandmotherly role of giving Leela a bath. Leela, who she barely got to see as it was. They grabbed any opportunity they could to bond with Leela, managing to sneak a night where Leela could have a sleepover in the caravan.
Simon was saying, "Oh, she won't stay out there, she won't stay out there." She stayed all night, she had a lovely time.
The next morning, it was time for Jim and Cath to head back home to Wodonga. So they packed down the caravan and hooked it onto the back of their four-wheel drive. Simon, Chantelle and Leela were there, but Simon wasn't having a fond farewell.
He wouldn't let Cath give her a kiss goodbye, and he stood in front of the four-wheel drive holding the baby and wouldn't let her say goodbye to her, and she's screaming because she wants to kiss Cath goodbye, and he wouldn't let her. He was just really holding on to her like, terrible, That was our last memory that day.
No. How that must have felt awful not being able to say goodbye to your little grandchild.
It was horrible, yeah. And driving away and she's crying her eyes out.
Jim and Cath had to tear themselves away from their screaming granddaughter, always with that threat that if they said anything, they'd be cut off and never get to see her or Chantelle again. Then in July 2004, Cath answered a call from Chantelle and she sounded worried. Simon Cookerman, Chantelle's ex, the guy she'd met Simon Cadwell through, had turned up in Nannup.
Leela was only little, a toddler, and every time she went into town, he would try and get her attention and come up to her.
Chantelle told her mum she felt uncomfortable. She was advised to take out a restraining order. The landlord of the Blue House has a confrontation with Cookerman and tells him to get off the property. Finally, the police are called. The local copper, Sergeant Jeff Taylor, picked Cookerman up and he was moved on.
It turns out he wasn't trying to hurt them.
He was actually trying to warn them.
As Sergeant Taylor was transferring him out of the area, Cookerman was insisting that Chantelle wasn't safe, that Simon Cadwell was running a cult, that he wasn't who he said he was. But Cookerman was sent on his way all the same. It sounds like Cookerman wasn't the only one making his way to Nannup because of Simon Cadwell. As I've been gathering information about his life, I found out that Simon Cadwell would get these visitors from time to time, sometimes from across the world, come all the way to Nannup to see him. When they'd visit the house, Chantelle would take Leela to the park, where they'd wait until the visitor had left before heading home. When I met Jim and Cath, they shared a bunch of home videos Chantelle had sent them. It's strange watching them. It all seems far more regular family life than I was expecting. There's one where they're all playing a game. Leela clearly delighted they get to pull ugly faces at one another.
The person who goes first has to pull the most scary piranha face. Yeah. Right?
There's a birthday party in Nannup.
Happy birthday to you.
3, 2, 1, go! Who won that then?
There are these occasional moments that jump out of nowhere, that feel off. Chantelle and Simon are watching Leela open her presents.
Mummy's drunk again. Any excuse, especially your own daughter's birthday.
I don't know if it's what happened after these videos were recorded that's colouring my impression, but the way Simon says this to the camera, to some unknown watcher at a later date, without Chantelle even knowing what he's saying. It gives me the creeps. About a year after the four had moved into the little blue house on the isolated outskirts of Nannup, Chantelle's back in Denmark, soaking in the evening with her friend Tracy. Tracy and Chantelle cooking and catching up on lost time. But once the girls were in bed, Tracy thinks they were sitting out on her back porch when Chantelle says,
I've been to Bunbury because I had an abortion there.
Since I began looking into Chantelle's story, I've been trying to find out as much about her as I can. And I actually found out about this pregnancy a while ago, long before I met Tracy. But until now, I didn't think it was relevant. But what Tracy tells me next makes me realise this is important.
You know, she didn't really want to. She wasn't that happy about it. It was definitely because Simon wanted her to, because he didn't feel that there should be any more children brought into the world.
So you got the impression she would have preferred to have the baby?
Absolutely. She was just a born mother. She was like, yeah, it was her thing. I guess she was just trying to accept it.
This is the first time I'm hearing this part of the story. Lots of people have indicated that Simon could be controlling, but hearing that he was the one who decided Chantelle should end her pregnancy is difficult to take in. In the years leading up to this, cracks were starting to show in Simon's online world too. In 1999, around the time Simon was getting back to Australia from the UK, a follower called Jean sent out an email and published it on the web for anyone to see. He says Simon Cadwell had reached out to him online, and at first he believed in his teachings, even undertaking the Truth Fellowship correspondence course. But after meeting Simon in person, he found him to be cunning and deceitful. He said Simon had manipulated younger women into giving him money. Then the replies started coming back. Jean published those online too. People said they'd also found Simon to be dodgy, that he was, quote, cold-hearted, egotistic, phony, robotic imitation of a man. There was one email from a woman named Kim who wrote that Simon had asked her to marry him. They'd never even met. By 2007, Simon's behaviour in real life was erratic. You remember the great silver EMF ball hunt. And his online behaviour was getting pretty troubling too. He was chatting with someone from his online group who suggested he go to Brazil, but he rejected that idea, consumed by what's been called a spiritual hopelessness. He said the household had a plan for a family suicide. They'd all wander off into the forest. He, Chantelle and Leela would take a fast-acting drug, and Tony would bury them before taking it himself. He said he didn't think Chantelle would do it because she kept delaying. People he communicated with said that his energy seemed a bit withdrawn. He told someone else he was depressed and taking antipsychotics. It was around June 2007 when people in town started talking. They were noticing things. The people in the blue house seemed to be giving away their possessions. Chantelle's pet dachshunds had had puppies, and she advertised them for sale. Tony Poppich sold a car. Simon gave away an apparently hallucinogenic plant. Each of them giving away things that had been important to them. One day, Tony turned up at Jody McDonald's, the electrical apprentice and next-door neighbour. He was giving away Chantelle's chickens.
In the country, it's unusual to give away your chickens unless there's a reason behind it. Either you're getting new ones, they're too old to lay, or they're like poor layers.
These chickens were young and still on the lay. Jody called her other neighbour to find out more.
I had said to her, she's just offered me all her chickens.
This story feels so typical of country town living. Not asking too many questions, but immediately getting on the phone for a bit of neighbourly gossip. I can so relate. Unlike Jodie, her neighbour wasn't afraid of having a sticky beak.
That's when she rang her and asked her, was she leaving? And so that's when she said no, that they couldn't afford to leave and they put a lot of money into doing renovations.
And then, on June 24, on the other side of the country, in the McDougall family kitchen, the phone rings. There's a lot going on. A house full of people left over from a family birthday. Chantelle's sister, Colleen, picks up the phone. She says a few words, then hands it over to Cath.
She just rang up and asked me all about the party first and everything, and I told her how it went really well, and she sort of said, oh, I got to tell you, we're going to move to Brazil. I just couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to say.
Had Chantelle ever expressed an interest in moving to Brazil before that phone call?
No, she never ever expressed any interest to move there.
I didn't ask a lot of questions then, but I just said to her, we want to communicate, we want to know where you're going.
It's clear listening that Jim and Cath felt totally swept away by events. Things happening they had no control over. Just doing what they could to try and make the best of it. Jim got the internet put on so they'd be able to email. Cath put together one of her care parcels.
I had sent Leela a little backpack with, I think it was Leela and Stitch on it, and a little photo album, and I put all the family's photographs in there, and on the back of our photo I put our name and address and a telephone number and that for her.
Why did you, I guess, go to that effort of putting all the photos together with all your details on it?
So Leela wouldn't forget us. She'd always remember us, because I knew we couldn't afford to go over there if they were staying over there. And so, yeah, and she had the contact details if she got older and she wanted to contact us. Yeah.
Can you see yourself?
Yeah.
Hearing this story and about the chickens and everything else Tony and Chantelle were selling or giving away, not to mention the reason behind Chantelle's abortion, that it was Simon's call because he didn't think any more people should be brought into this world. It leaves me with a deep sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. Whether Chantelle was planning to leave for Brazil or wander into the bush with Simon and Tony to take their own lives, she was aware they were going somewhere, possibly for good. But what about Leela, that little force of a girl who didn't get a say in any of it?
And then what happens in the end?
Happily ever after, the end.
It's a really difficult question to reckon with. And there was something coming that would reveal the extent of Simon's deception and manipulation and leave everyone questioning what they thought they knew about the man living with Chantelle in the blue house.